All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we got to talk about everything in and around the Commanders' first OTA practices. Of course, we got to talk about standouts. There's a lot of notes, a lot of really interesting notes and quotes concerning Terry McLaurin and his contract. How far apart are they? Will it be done soon? Are we considering a franchise tag? We're going to talk about all of that. Also, Curtis Samuel looks to be 100% healthy. Chase Young should be back in 2 weeks. We got a first look at Carson Wentz. Ron Rivera wants to run a running back committee, something similar to what he had in Carolina through Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. John Bates is out here looking good. Cam Curl is becoming a leader of the defense. There's so many things to talk about, man. We got to dive into all of it. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, as usual, I will keep y'all updated on everything OTAs, everything mini camps, everything training camps. So definitely stay tuned for all of that and the live streams that I have coming up as well. And without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it. And before we dive into all of the practices and important quotes that I know y'all are waiting on, first of all, just wanted to remind people that we will have no joint practices in Washington this year. Ron Rivera confirmed it today, saying, quote, "We're going to focus on us," unquote. And I don't like that idea. I feel like, especially with how little we play our starters during the preseason and how many new pieces and potentially new starters in general that we have on this team, that some joint practices will be very beneficial. There's a reason we play preseason games, and joint practices are pretty much like an extended preseason game exhibition type of thing. And we need as many reps as possible outside of just running around with pads and helmets on. So I don't like it, but maybe this is just Ron Rivera trying to flip it. Maybe this is just his publicist getting them to put a healthy, positive spin on it, because like I talked about in my previous video, talking about the fact that we weren't going to have any joint practices, I think is because we burnt that bridge with the Buffalo Bills with that whole JD McKissic situation, because there were talks that we may have a joint practice with the Bills months ago, and now suddenly we're confirmed to not have one. And I think that JD McKissic situation is the reason. And again, I just think Ron Rivera is just putting a positive spin on it, saying we're going to focus on us. Also, Rivera said that OTAs are a time to learn technique and establish a relationship with teammates. Added that the players look good at practice today in rainy conditions. So just remember that it was a rainy day at practice today. That's no excuse, because you're gonna have to play in the rain, especially until we get that new stadium. And even after we do, we'll end up playing some teams with no roof, and we'll end up playing in the rain. So you got to be able to produce in the rain. So it's absolutely no excuse from my end. And it wasn't even like the rainiest day. It wasn't torrential rain, but it was wet, it was rainy. And of course, before we dive into everything, remember, these are OTAs. Of course, it's fun to see everybody back in uniform and running around. We're all excited. Even as an analyst, even as a YouTuber, the only for real things you can take from OTAs is injuries. Who's returning from injury and who got hurt in OTAs. Everything else, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Now, every information is good information, but there's different levels of how important things are. Because you can definitely look great in OTAs and end up playing terribly in the regular season. But you can also play terribly in OTAs and play very well in the regular season. So it doesn't really show us anything for real meaningful other than injuries. So we're not going to jump the gun on anything positive or negative. I'm going to report it, and I'm going to let y'all know what's going on. But don't assume that because a player is out there looking like a Hall of Famer in OTAs that they're going to be good heading into week one and throughout the regular season period. Now, we got to start with Terry McLaurin. I think that's obvious. Terry McLaurin has not been with the team since the draft. And it's also, of course, been reported that this is unrelated to Washington selecting a receiver in the first round. And with that receiver being Jahan Dotson, I think it's very interesting that he said that he has yet to speak with Terry McLaurin even once. But the main reason we're talking about Terry McLaurin is because he's missing OTAs, of course, like I said. He hasn't been in contact with the team at all other than contract talks since the draft. And Rivera said that the two sides are working through extension talks right now, but there's no specific update provided. And again, Terry McLaurin remains committed to skipping on-field workouts until there's a resolution with his contract extension. And there was a report late last night, like at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. somewhere, from Scott Polachek from Bleacher Report saying that rumors are going around that Terry McLaurin and Washington remain far apart in contract talks. It was actually reported by Nikki Javala of the Washington Post. She said the two sides, quote, remain far apart, unquote, in contract negotiations. But Ron Rivera, when he spoke about it at OTAs today, sounded confident. He said the deal with Terry McLaurin, quote, just a matter of time, unquote. But again, he declined to give any specifics on the negotiations. But again, according to Nikki Javala, last night, the two sides are far apart. And JP Finlay also tweeted out, talking with @Corey Joel about a new Terry McLaurin deal, quote, is going to look a lot different than it did when the offseason began. If I'm the Commanders, I'm not too happy with the Eagles, unquote. Honestly, Christian Kirk said it all, even though his contract, when you actually look at the details, is not as crazy as it looks on the surface when you see those numbers. But still, I think Christian Kirk started it, and it's been a big domino effect since then. But I do believe the AJ Brown deal does probably hurt us even more than the Christian Kirk deal because of the years they were both drafted and similar production / potential, all of that type of stuff. They're very comparable. They don't have the same play style, but there's a lot of similarities there. And so, of course, AJ Brown got his new 4-year, $100 million deal with Philly after he was traded to Philadelphia from the Tennessee Titans. And JP Finlay even mentioned that a $20 million franchise tag can make more sense than paying Terry McLaurin $25 million per year. Even though that's really interesting because technically with an extension, it wouldn't hit this year's salary cap. And next year, we definitely should have enough money to pay Terry McLaurin long term, even just off of the fact that Carson Wentz $28 million will come off the books unless we plan on re-signing them based off of what happens this season. But there's a lot of contracts coming off of the books, so looking forward to the 2023 salary cap, I feel like we should be able to pay Terry McLaurin right now. But of course, hearing the word franchise tag sends everybody into a panic, and I think obviously, I don't even think there's a debate here. Franchise tagging Terry McLaurin is a terrible idea. We're not about to go down this Brandon Sheriff, Kirk Cousins situation again. And just stop being cheap with one of your players that's been here through all of the quarterback carousel, the terrible, inconsistent quarterback play, and has said nothing about it, has never complained, going out there getting double teamed, hitting the head and still making the catch on third down when you need it the most, being wide open and not even getting the ball from quarterbacks. Remember Stephon Gilmore, when he won Defensive Player of the Year, Terry McLaurin was cooking him that year, but he just never got the ball because the quarterback play was so bad. And it's basically been like that his whole time of being here. Taylor Heinicke was the first quarterback that was willing to at least throw it up there for him to get it. He was just super inaccurate, couldn't throw the deep ball well. So Terry McLaurin still couldn't shine as well as he should have, but man, Terry McLaurin's been going through it. And then, like, several people have brought up the good point that, I mean, if Terry McLaurin's been through all of this, he's done all of the right things on and off the field. If you can't pay him long term, what message does that send to the other players on the team? They're going to look around and be like, well, I'm pretty sure I'm not the best player on the team like Terry McLaurin, and I'm also pretty sure I'm not as crystal clean and 100% perfect off the field either as well. And if they can't pay him, there's no way they're going to be able to pay me long term, so why am I here? Now, the Washington Commanders have shown recently that they can pay their players and that they will. With Jonathan Allen, Charles Leno, Logan Thomas all getting deals that they really like and they felt like they were compensated very well. So I am optimistic about this Terry McLaurin situation, but if they mess this up, first of all, folding the Terry McLaurin situation and potentially moving the stadium to Virginia is probably literally going to eliminate a third of the fan base within a 24-hour span. I mean, that's going to be crazy. I mean, I'm still going to be here, move stadium to Virginia. I mean, I'm from Atlanta, so either way, I got to take a plane from Atlanta or from New York. So that doesn't really matter to me that much, even though I would prefer Maryland because I do have family in Maryland. But I feel like with those of y'all that are in the DMV area, y'all should have way more say in it than me. So I feel like my preference shouldn't even matter. As long as it's close to an airport, I guess I'm good. But the Terry McLaurin situation, oh yeah, I would be highly upset with this team. Now, of course, I would still be a fan of this team, and I would still be out here making videos on a daily basis. But like, boy, a lot of my optimism will fly right out the window, man. This channel will become half Georgia Bulldog, half Washington Commanders. I'm telling you, they messed up this Terry McLaurin situation. Now moving on to Curtis Samuel. Zach Shelby tweeted out, as some have pointed out, Curtis Samuel is at practice and looks healthy. Samuel has said that he feels like his former self, and it looks like he's backing it up, and that's good to hear. Now these are the things that you need to definitely pay attention to when it comes to OTAs. Most notably Terry McLaurin's contract situation, and again, health with certain players, most notably Curtis Samuel. We're going to talk about Chase Young a little later, but it looks like Curtis Samuel is out there looking right back to 100% healthy. I mean, doing quick cuts and everything. So maybe we can have a little bit of faith that Curtis Samuel actually contributing on offense. Rivera even spoke about Curtis Samuel, saying that he looks good and that he fits very well into what the team is trying to do on offense. I mean, of course he does. Scott Turner literally developed his offensive game plan and scheme around having a Curtis Samuel in the offense when he was still in Carolina, and brought that here. And that's why Ron Rivera and Scott Turner wanted to get Curtis Samuel back so bad, and they took him from Carolina to Washington like they did themselves, because he has a definitive role in this offense, and we were clearly missing that last year. So I'm really excited about Curtis Samuel. We'll see. He even spoke about it. He was at the podium. He said, quote, "I'm great. Y'all saw me flying out there," unquote, and I like the confidence there. I definitely like the confidence. I like the fact that he feels good about himself. And I mean, he spoke about his health and he would give updates, and they would be positive updates last year, but it was never with that much confidence. So right now it's kind of like a tone of, yeah, obviously, like, I'm good out there. Y'all see me, I'm straight. Y'all don't need to worry anymore. So hopefully I can believe in it, because last year we were getting catfished to death week by week, every month. Start believing in Curtis Samuel, hurt again, or just wasn't 100%. Would get the ball 2 times in a game. And then Jahan Dotson, he was at the podium. He said that he had a fun practice out there today, and he liked catching passes from Carson Wentz. He said that he really likes how precise he is with his passes. And we're going to talk about Carson Wentz soon. Had an up and down day, but don't overreact to the ups and do not overreact to the downs. But Jahan Dotson says that he likes what he saw from Carson Wentz. Of course, coming from what he had to deal with at Penn State, one of the worst quarterback situations in the country, I know he's happy to be catching passes from Carson Wentz. To him, Carson Wentz is a Hall of Famer compared to what he has to deal with. So again, that's another thing you kind of have to take with a grain of salt, because comparing Carson Wentz to the quarterback Jahan Dotson at Penn State isn't even fair. Even Carson Wentz on his worst day, that's going to be an upgrade to Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson also spoke about the playbook. He said that he's learning the playbook, but it's really hard, and that's basically what he's been spending most of the time working on during OTAs. He said he compared it to speaking English his whole life and then trying to learn a new language now. And I can fully understand that. Learning a playbook is crazy, especially going from college to NFL. It's not as bad switching NFL teams, even though it still is really bad. Different terminologies, different wording of everything. I mean, going from a West Coast offense to an El Coryell offense, even though that's a fairly easy transition because Scott Turner doesn't use complicated play calls, but still, making the jump from college to NFL, especially learning the playbook, has to be crazy. I mean, studying all day and night type of thing. So I hope he gets it down soon. We expect that of him as a first round pick. Now, moving on to the running backs. Rivera said about the running back group that most of it will be by committee, and he's trying to emulate the Carolina days. Now, before we dive into what that means, first of all, an update on Antonio Gibson. Reported by John Com, Antonio Gibson spent this offseason trying to enhance his game. He trained with Kerry Bennett at his facility in Katy, Texas, where Gibson focused on ball security, staying low through the hole, and nutrition. Remember, Gibson fumbled 6 times and lost 4 of them last season after fumbling twice as a rookie. But of course, a painful shin injury also likely contributed to the issue. He said last season that he had a stress fracture that hurt almost every time he was hit. But to address his fumbling, Gibson ran plays with Bennett carrying a 3-pound ball, about 2 pounds heavier than the regulation ball, so about 3 times the weight. With the added weight, Gibson could better feel when the ball wasn't tight against his body. Bennett also challenged Gibson by placing a series of 5-foot hurdles made of PVC pipes that he had to run under while cutting. Bennett said, quote, "He's not as compact at 6'2", so we focused on making him not such a big target, unquote. And then off the field wise, they worked with the chef to lower Gibson's body fat from 18% to 12%. Gibson said slimming down, muscling up. Just to get some of my speed back, I wanted to get quicker. I feel looser in the hips. I feel explosive, unquote. And now this running back by committee thing. Remember, the Washington Commanders drafted Alabama running back who's 6'1", 225 pounds in the 3rd round. And he even said, quote, I choose to be physical and wear defenses down, but I can be elusive. But more than anything, I try to be downhill and put my size and my force on, unquote. And basically, Washington is trying to recreate that Panthers, Williams, and Stewart pairing. Now, this was before Ron Rivera got there as the head coach in 2011, because they earned that nickname Double Trouble in 2008 when they combined for 2,500, 19 yards from scrimmage and 30 touchdowns. But Ron Rivera said even though he came a little bit later, he still felt the impact. And in his first season as head coach for the Carolina Panthers, Williams rushed for 836 yards and Stewart rushed for 761. And that's really good. If we can get that out of Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, we're winning 10 plus games. Rivera said, quote, it was one of the most unselfish things I've ever seen. If one guy was rolling, they say go ahead and keep going. They were very supportive, unquote. And I like that, man. If we can recreate that, you know how much easier things will be for Carson Wentz in the receiving group? Oh my Lord, man. If we can run the ball that effectively, where one guy gets 800 plus, the other guy gets 700 plus, and then you have JD McKissic in the passing game too. Oh yeah, that's deadly right there, man. If we can do that, not guaranteeing that we will, but I like the vision. I like the goal. Now the rest of the offense before we move to the defense, apparently Carson Wentz had an up and down day. Now, we did get some first looks as far as clips go. He looked crisp throwing the ball, but of course, he's a veteran quarterback, so we should expect that. But Carson Wentz threw the first pick of the offseason. He threw an interception to Corn Elder, but of course, JP Finlay emphasized in all caps, this is not a big deal. But of course, people are already trolling him under the tweet saying, put Howell in already, bench him now, it's Sam Howell time. So that's always really funny. I mean, I expected nothing less than that. I'm pretty sure some fans are serious, but I'm also sure that a lot of those fans are trolling. But yeah, man, like I said, man, do not read too far into anything outside of injury, contract talks like with Terry McLaurin, all of that type of stuff. Of course, Carson Wentz is going to look excellent at times. Of course, he's going to look bad at sometimes. This is everybody's first return to football, and this is also Carson Wentz learning a completely new offense and a completely new playbook, his 3rd time in 3 years. So expect a little bit of a bumpy road. And like I already said way back when we first drafted Sam Howell, now there's going to be moments where Sam Howell to De'Ami Brown is going to look like a better connection than anything of Carson Wentz to anybody, because Carson Wentz has never thrown to any of these receivers or tight ends before in his career, whereas Sam Howell and De'Ami Brown brought the best out of each other in college. So when there's practices, of course Sam Howell to De'Ami Brown versus backup corners is going to look better than Carson Wentz to even Terry McLaurin whenever we get that contract done, or even say Jahan Dotson against the first team defense. So, you know, just expect that roller coaster right there. Again, especially since his OTAs don't read into it too much, but even mini camps and even kind of training camps, but we'll see how far we're in the training camp, what Carson Wentz looks like. But unless Carson Wentz gets severely injured, he's the week 1 starter, period. I don't think there's anything Sam Howell can even do. Sam Howell can go out there and look like a Hall of Famer. I don't think that would matter at this point. But going back to the running backs, when Antonio Gibson addressed the media, he said he's excited to work with the rest of the offense, and he was impressed with Carson Wentz today as well. So him and Jahan Dotson are excited. But even for Antonio Gibson, comparing Carson Wentz to what we had in Taylor Heinicke or even the likes of Alex Smith and Dwayne Haskins, of course Carson Wentz looks like an upgrade early on. Will it be good enough to win games? We'll see, especially to win what I believe is a realistic 10 games this season. But again, just like Jahan Dotson's comparison to what he dealt with in college, Antonio Gibson, what he's had to deal with since he's been here for the Burgundy and Gold, with Kyle Allen having to step in and Garrett Gilbert and all kinds of chaos at quarterback. Of course, Carson Wentz already looks better than all of those guys in practice. But again, it's practice, along with some up and downs, including an interception that he already threw. But as far as the rest of the offense goes, De'Ami Brown had a nice one-handed grab from Carson Wentz, with it being wet as well. Also, John John Bates hauled in a super contested catch over Derek Forrest that was draped all over him. And so, hey man, I'm really excited about John Bates and his ability to contribute in the passing game, because we already know he's a really solid blocker, really good blocker. So I'm really excited about him being able to contribute in the passing game. We saw some of it last year. He's not the best separator at all, but when the ball is thrown towards him, he comes down with it, just like he did in today's practice against Derek Forrest, who had excellent coverage on him. And then, of course, what we also saw in that Cowboys blowout game when he was running people over. Also, Cole Turner had a really nice catch from Carson Wentz, but it was also a really good ball from Carson Wentz, so it's not much we can really take from that. But I am really excited about Cole Turner being a deadly receiving threat. I think he'll honestly be Carson Wentz's favorite target out of the tight end group, maybe out of the entire offense. We'll see, especially when we get to the red zone. Carson Wentz loves his big targets. Now again, I want to keep saying this, he's never had an ensemble of smaller, shiftier, separating, fast, speedy receivers like he's had here. This Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown ensemble is better than anything he's ever had in his career at the NFL level, really in his life. So maybe he's always thrown the bigger guys because he's never had really good, smaller separator guys like Terry McLaurin and everybody else to throw to throughout his career. But history has shown that he likes the Michael Pittmans from the Colts, the Alshon Jeffries, the Dallas Goederts, and the Zach Ertz of the Eagles. And Cole Turner projects to be the most like that out of anybody in our entire receiving and tight end group. Logan Thomas is a good receiving target and a good blocker as well. John Bates has good hands, but he's mostly known for his blocking. Cole Turner has the best chance of being a true red zone threat and a safety blanket for Carson Wentz, because history shows he likes to throw the big guys. Now again, he's never had anybody as good as Terry McLaurin in his career of throwing the ball, so maybe we'll see him throw it to those guys more often while he's here. You could also argue he's never had a JD McKissick type of guy too, especially to the level of a JD McKissick, so maybe he'll do more checkdowns as well. Now moving on to the defense. First of all, injury update. One of the things you need to pay the most attention to. Ron Rivera told reporters at OTAs that Chase Young, who is recovering from an ACL injury, is expected to join the team in the next couple of weeks. And that's better than what I thought. I mean, I was worried about him as far as training camp goes. It sounds like he'll be back before mini camps even start. So I'm really excited about that. Rivera said that Chase Young, who was also not here, has a medical plan and should return for some voluntary portion of OTAs. So he's not even in the DMV area, I believe. Ron Rivera also said that Montez Sweat and Cam Sims are away for personal reasons and should return soon. I believe he said Montez Sweat may even return as soon as tomorrow. So no skipping OTAs. Guys are gone for personal reasons or for injuries, but they'll be back as soon as possible. We learned last year that nobody can afford to miss time. I don't care what's going on. Of course, Chase Young, I'm happy that he went and got that Family Feud money and all of that other money that he was getting. But this year, after what you did last year, you got to go prove yourself. You need to be present for everything. We gave you a little bit of a leash and you didn't produce. Even before the injury is not an excuse. And I just rhymed right there, boy. I killed that. That was a bar.
That's why he's the GOAT.
I forgot what I was even saying. I just barred up too much. Also, again, it's OTAs, so don't read into it too much. But I think this may be something that actually translates into the actual regular season when we're playing meaningful games. On the defensive side, it was mostly 2 linebackers, Cole Holcomb and Davis, and then 3 safeties with 2 corners. So unless, or JP Finlay said until they sign a vet linebacker, they pretty much expect that's what everything is going to look like most of the time. 2 linebackers, 3 safeties, Cam Curl, Bobby McCain, and Percy Butler, and 2 corners, William Jackson and Kendall Fuller. Again, with your linebackers being Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis. And I'm expecting big things out of Jamin Davis. I definitely don't think he's a bust. He may never live up to that 19th overall pick, but we'll see, man. He may be a really dynamic player, man. I say let him go back to being a similar weight that he was in college so he can be a pure will instead of trying to force him into being a Mike linebacker where he was trying to gain weight. Let him gain some of that quickness, explosion, agility back, and just let him go out there and cover guys, blow up screens, and blitz them up the middle like we used to do with Zach Brown. I think at the very least, Jamin Davis can be a better Zach Brown as far as blitzing goes. He's more athletic, he's faster, all of that. So I feel like we should definitely use him in a similar way like that, but also put him out there in coverage. Remember in college, you could argue before Kyle Pitts hit the NFL, Jamin Davis probably did the best job of covering him. Out of corners, safeties, everybody. Out of the entire SEC included. Even even a lot of those Georgia Bulldogs that were already on the Georgia Bulldogs before we just won that championship this past season. So I need to see some of that on the field. Jamin Davis has too much talent to not at least be good. Jack Del Rio, it took him a long time to figure out how to use William Jackson to get the most out of him, Bobby McCain, and especially Landon Collins. I'm hoping he can figure it out very soon with Jamin Davis. Also, Ron Rivera was asked who's the leader of the secondary when Landon Collins gone, and Bobby McCain is still on a new contract, and I mean, he just got here last year, and Ron Rivera said, quote, I think the guy that's kind of starting to find his voice is Cam Curl. He's played very well for us, and the group is really coming together, unquote. So I think that's really interesting that Cameron Curl is starting to step up as one of the defensive leaders. Also, William Jackson said that the defense put a lot of pressure on themselves last year because they knew they were supposed to be good. This year, the players have been getting more familiar with each other, and that should transfer to the field. So less expectations after having a down year, even though I agree with Louis T. We need to get to the point that we can eat up expectations. When outside voices, the media, fans, everybody expects us to have an elite defense, and then if anything, we even outperform that and we go past expectations. We shouldn't have to have a down year and then everybody's calm and we don't have as much outside noise and now they can focus on being great. No, we need to be great through all of that. We need to be consistent. We need to be able to put up back-to-back years of being elite while people expect us to be elite. So, I mean, granted, that is relatively good news to hear short term, but long term, we got to get out of that mentality. But also, of course, Jack Del Rio was not playing and made sure he let it be known that he blames a lot of our defensive struggles on the fact that a lot of guys were missing voluntary workouts, especially like the playbook learning process of the offseason last year. So we're expecting better things out of everybody now that everybody's 100% committed and involved. Also, Cole Holcomb spoke at the podium. He said the coaches have been adamant that he's going to get a shot at Mike linebacker like they've been saying for months now. Martin Mayhew already said it right before the draft. Cole Holcomb said that he appreciates the support and says that having the role full-time will be much easier after making the calls from multiple shots last year, and I do agree with that. My problem with Cole Holcomb isn't mentally, because I think he can handle everything. He showed us after John Bostic went down, Mr. Pre-Snap himself, that Cole Holcomb could actually handle being the quarterback of the defense, getting everybody where they needed to be, making the right calls, all of that type of stuff. I like that part from Cole Holcomb. I'm very optimistic about that. My problem with Cole Holcomb at Mike linebacker is his ability to stack and shed with offensive linemen, being able to blow up against bigger blockers, not just running backs and tight ends and receivers, and being able to make stops in the backfield or at the very least the line of scrimmage instead of like 3 or 5 yards down the field like he used to. Now, he is getting better with that. He started to make more plays at the line of scrimmage, but it was more so because he improved so much mentally than physically. So again, I am a little worried about physically if he can handle being in all of the traffic and in the trenches. But again, mentally, I'm sure he's fine. I'm confident in him being a Mike linebacker as far as that goes. But I would still love to bring in a veteran that can be that stack and shed, punish people at the offensive line type of guy. If Cole Holcomb could just add a little bit of Rashaan Evans in him, a little madman wrecking ball to him, Cole Holcomb would literally be a Pro Bowler. Jonathan Allen also spoke at the podium. He said that No Matt Ioannidis and Tim Settle made it, quote, a little weird today, unquote. But that's the deal. Players are, quote, hired hands, unquote, so it's wise to expect changes. Allen also said that as far as what he's seen from Fadarian Mathis and Brian Robinson, they've met every expectation that he has for fellow Alabama alums. Can't necessarily trust that opinion yet, but I mean, hey, if he says something negative, then that's when you worry. When he says something positive, we'll see. But remember, those are our second and third round picks of this year's draft, basically just making us the Washington Commander Crimson Tide, even more than we already were. Also, before we get up out of here, unrelated to our practices, Deion Jones from the Falcons, you know, that Buffalo nickel type of role, it looks like he's probably on the way out as a post-June 1st cut. So if we don't bring back Landon Collins for very cheap, if we're still looking for a Buffalo nickel and we don't want to try Percy Butler or Derek Forrest, Khaleke Hudson, or undrafted free agent Farrod Gardner, who I'm excited about, if we don't trust either of them to be our Buffalo nickel, Deion Jones is also an option, even though I feel like Landon Collins makes the most sense, especially for very cheap. After we cut him as of June 1st, maybe we sign him back for very cheap, and I'd be very happy with that. Because I ultimately think that Percy Butler is going to take over Bobby McCain's role. I think he could be very good at Buffalo nickel, but I don't think he should be there as often as Landon Collins was because he's a way smaller guy. I mean, I literally look at him as basically like a Daxton Hill. So he can play Buffalo nickel, but I prefer for him to be our rangy free safety even walk up and man cover receivers if he has to, type of thing. Basically just a way more athletic Kendall Fuller. Also, Ian Rappaport tweeted out that the NFL is discussing the Pro Bowl week and ways to improve it, including possibly eliminating the traditional game and using that Sunday to showcase the players in it. Essentially, what are the alternatives? And Mello Miller tweeted out a QB competition, gauntlet drills, obstacle course, and a bench press contest as far as many things that they could do. And I agree, man. I mean, I already like what they did for the skill challenges. I like the dodgeball game. I like all of that. But yeah, take away that game on Sunday and add more things like Mello said. QB competition will be really fun. Obstacle course, a bench press contest sounds really fun. So hey man, I'm definitely down for all of that, because that would be a lot of trash talk, and there's so many creative ways that you can do it. I mean, hey, maybe a pickup basketball game for anybody that wants to participate. I'm down. And then, of course, you also have a few baseball players like Pat Mahomes and Kyler Murray, so maybe you could do like a little softball game or something. I don't know. Kickball? I don't know. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, as far as the injuries go, as far as some of the notes from how players look already, good and bad, Terry McLaurin's contract situation and him not being present for any on-the-field workouts until his contract gets done. Are you optimistic that we will get the deal done, or are you pessimistic and feel like they're gonna mess this up as well? And so, man, I appreciate all of y'all. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. I'm sure you learned at least one thing that I talked about, so you gotta leave a like on the way out. And of course, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I was spitting earlier. That bar I dropped, man.